Oh, yes, greetings, friends. So, tonight I thought I'm going to go back to the Enneagram stuff. And tonight I'm going to do a video on two of my favorite things. So, I'm going to do a video on the Enneagram and South Park. Who doesn't like South Park? I love South Park. One of my favorite shows of all time. Now, what I want to do is I want to go through all the Enneagram points and maybe select the best examples of them, or what I think. These are just opinion pieces. I can't prove any of this. Just from the list of characters. It might even be fun. I'm not going to get to all of them. There's a lot more characters than there is Enneagram points, so I thought this would be easier. So I'm going to start at number one, the perfectionist, or the purist. And I think the best example in South Park of an Enneagram 1 might be Kyle Broflovsky. Very, very high moral character, a lot more tightly wound and irritable than Stan. We'll get to him later. He gets offended quite easily, and it's usually a moral sort of outrage. This is why he tangles with Cartman so much, because Cartman's so not moral. Um, and a fairly healthy one most of the times, too. He'll care a lot more about whether his actions are right or wrong than his friends. I think there's other ones in the show. I think Wendy Testaberger might be a one as well. Um, we don't know as much about her as we know about Kyle. Kyle's in almost every episode. Wendy's only in the occasional one. Now, the stress arrows, the one disintegrates to four. So Kyle often feels like an outsider. He thinks it's because he's the only Jewish kid in South Park, but I think it's more like he's morally repulsed by a lot of his peers. Um, he's always looking for that, way to fit in. Like he's always feels like he doesn't fit in. Like he even joined that David Blaine cult in one episode because he felt like such an outsider. But it also integrates to number seven, and of all of them, he can actually be the most outgoing, open-minded, and seeking of new things. And he'll probably be the first of them to go, you know what, dudes? I've learned something today at the end of the episode. Sevens always like to learn new things. So ones, when they integrate to seven, they're often excited about learning something new. Now on to number two, the helper. Now I think the perfect high-functioning two probably has to be Butters. He's one of my favorites. I just love Butters. Um, Butters is easily a type 2. He's extroverted, he's helpful, he's sweet, he's generous. He's probably one of the only kids that isn't rotten. He wants to be appreciated and accepted. He wants to be accepted by his parents, who usually treat him like dirt. The other kids, same thing. Even when he's trying to be the evil Professor Chaos, he's still just wanting to kind of be noticed and appreciated. I've seen nine. I thought nine is a possibility, but I think he's too extroverted and energetic to be a nine. Nines are kind of lethargic and a little more withdrawn. Number three, that brings us to number three, the achiever. And I think a good example of the achiever might be Jimmy Vollmer, the boy that's on the crutches. Uh, Jimmy's really funny. Jimmy loves an audience with his stand-up comedy. Whoa, you're such a terrific audience. He's always nobody loves the spotlight more than him. He's always driven to succeed despite his disabilities. I mean, he even did steroids so he could win the Special Olympics. Showing the competitive energy that threes always seem to have in abundance. Now moving on from three, moving on to the four, I would say the romantic or the artist. I think the goth kids that smoke around the back of the school fit this really well. I love these kids. I would hang around with these kids if I lived in South Park. The ones that are all dressed in black, and they're outcasts, they're proud of it. Common everyday life is just BS, totally beneath them. The girl who smokes the cigarettes with the long holder, she's the picture perfect number four. For number five, the observer, I think I selected Craig Tucker. Very distant, emotionally flat, really aloof, preparing to kind of, or preferring rather, to keep the main characters and their shenanigans kind of at arm's length. Uh, he's a bit eccentric too. Like every now and then he'll kind of give the teacher the middle finger for no reason at all, and that never really gets explained. So the eccentricity is there as well. Almost a schizoid effect on him most of the time. Now type sixes are always a little tough to peg, but Phobic 6 tends to be a little bit easier. So I selected Tweak, who's kind of the side character that surfaces now and again, who's jumpy, jittery, afraid of his own shadow. His parents own the coffee shop, and he's always just... that's definitely the jumpy Phobic 6, almost like it is a cartoon caricature drawing of that. Now, for a number 7, which is the adventurer or the epicure, is probably Randy Marsh, Stan's dad. There's never a dull moment with Randy. He's kind of like a kid with ADHD needing stimulation all the time. If there's a fad, he's the first on board. He's curious about everything. He can form addiction to anything. He formed an addiction to the Food Network, Brazilian fart porn, the heroin shooting video game. If there's anything, he can get addicted to it. Now, that's not always a healthy 7, but he's definitely a 7. Now, 8, the boss or the challenger. Everybody will probably be expecting me to say Cartman, but I don't think Cartman falls as easily as an 8 as you might think. I might get to him a little bit later anyway. He might even need his own video. I think a better pure 8 might be Mr. Garrison. Very, very aggressive, very competitive. At his worst, he's a borderline psychotic, gender-confused tyrant. But at his best, he's incredibly motivated. He's very resourceful. He even invented and perfected a brand new form of transportation when he got pissed off at the airport. That's an 8 for you. Big companies start out that way all the time. There's entire car companies that start that way. Now we'll probably finish with number 9, the Peacemaker, and I would say a good example of that might be Stan Marsh. He's always the first one of the group to go, "Come on, dudes," and try and calm everybody down. When two characters don't get along, like Kyle and Eric, they don't get along at all. Stan gets along with both of them, and he's always playing the role of the mediator. Nines don't particularly like to stick out, and I don't think Stan does either. He never seeks the spotlight, and he's always annoyed when he finds himself in it. But he always seems to adapt. He never seeks it out, but when he's in it, he does fine. And now I also noticed something, this is a little detail, when they had that Facebook episode where he gets sucked into the Facebook grid, it listed his date of birth as October 5th, which is making him a Libra. And Libras are very, very often very 9-like. They like things cool, calm, they like people to get along, and usually most Libras that I know don't seek the spotlight for its own sake. If they find themselves in it, wonderful. I'm a Libra. I can share this. I think Clyde is a good example of a 9 too. Very laid back, very chilled. As I said, I think we should probably come back to Cartman. He might need his own. He might need his own video. He doesn't fall as neatly in one of those types. So there's lots of other ones. Maybe when we get to the wings and subtypes, these other characters might come up. So that's it for now.